It's about telling the truth,
Right.
and starting from the beginning of the story and not at a certain point
Right.
from a specific vantage point.
Exactly.
So that's what the whole thing is about. Again, the journey evolving for everybody.
Today in the woods. It's so important that we start focusing on the types of policies and practices that would bring the type of beautiful tomorrow and the dream for the future we all have for our children and grandchildren into reality. As a teacher, I believe the best way of accomplishing this is through education, because with self-enrichment, to know the good is to do the good, and knowledge is power. That's why today in the woods, I'm super excited about talking with Chester Middle School Principal, Miss Sheka Houston, because her leadership has led to tremendous gains in student achievement at her school. And you're going to want to watch this interview to learn more about one of her focuses, which is creating culturally relevant classrooms. And I'm so excited because as an educator, I know that what it takes to get our students engaged is not forced, fearful compliance and coercion. It's not even the teacher being more entertaining. It's having a meaningful curriculum that students can see the value in. And nothing is really more meaningful than the truth. And so what culturally relevant classrooms are really about is bringing more truth into the curriculum across every single subject. And when you bring these greater truths into the curriculum and have a diverse, meaningful, enriching curriculum, then all of a sudden the world opens up and lessons become so much more engaging for the students. And so we go now to this wonderful interview with Ms. Sheka Houston and tell us more about what culturally classrooms are, why they're important, and the tremendous success she's had to get a better idea of how we need to apply this across our district, state, and nation.
Observing classes, you hear people say things like, well, African American students don't want to learn, they're not interested in learning, and I just was not willing to accept that because that's not what I was seeing when I went into the classrooms. Our students do want to learn. They do care about their education. And on this journey, what I have found is that I think what the component that's missing, why culturally relevant curriculum and classrooms are important, is because they don't see themselves in the curriculum. So it's kind of rejected because where am I in this? I don't see myself when, people are bringing up some of the famous mathematicians or scientists. A lot of times when we talk about that in school, you don't bring up a lot of the African American contributors to that. And when students don't see themselves in something, they reject it. And the things that they do see themselves in frequently, and we hear a lot of them say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say, the football players or the basketball players or something in sports, because that's where they see themselves in the media.
Right.
So the journey actually started when a colleague of mine and a friend, Tammy Taylor, she's a leader at Great Falls Elementary School here in Chester, a principal there. We attended a conference in Charlotte. It was a Black Educators Rock conference, and we heard Dr. Chika Akua speak.
Right.
And the title of his presentation was on honoring our ancestral obligations.
Yeah.
So some of the symbolism, comparisons, things that he showed us in African American history, and if our students who, people are saying are not engaged in school, hear these stories, how would this motivate them? How would this change the trajectory of their lives? Hearing that, your story doesn't start with slavery. You come from people who are wealth creators, people who created literacy and scientific, theories, and I think would change the mindset of a lot of our students and the teachers. Students know your story as the teacher, and a lot of times students look at us and just think, they were just born to be successful, and that's how they're just successful people. That's how they were born. If they don't hear your story, they don't know that you've had to overcome some of the same adversities that they did. You know their story, they know your story. It changes the dynamic of the classroom. And culturally relevancy, just knowing about the history that your students are bringing to the classroom, their culture, and you taking the time to let them know that you've taken the time to do that, I think is important. For independent reading, students are able to pick books that they see themselves in, and not just African American students, our Hispanic American students as well. Or, it's important that as the leader, I know who everyone is in the building and make sure that everyone is represented in the curriculum. These things need to be infused, like you talked about, so it's almost as if we're all learning together. I was really encouraged by the response because I have white and black teachers at my school, learning how to be culturally relevant teachers and just conscious of biases. Everyone had a very positive response to Dr. Akua. So I try to really be conscious about being respectful of teachers' time. If something is not necessary to have a meeting about, I put it in my newsletter. But the response that all the teachers had to Dr. Akua was that this was one of the best professional developments that I have had. Saying, Miss Houston, I've never heard a lot of the things that he's talked about before, and this is really something that I can add to my curriculum that I think will really engage our students. Even the presentation that he did with the young people from the church in Georgia the other day on social justice also talked about how some of these systems really just have changed from slavery to now a different form of slavery with the prison system. Yeah. So, we, as an African American female educator, I don't want to contribute to the school to prison pipeline, as many people call it. I have 3 focuses: STEAM, Lead, Succeed at our school, and Leader in Me is one that we really try to shift the paradigm with students. And one of the paradigms is that everyone has genius. What is your genius? Because everybody has it. We just have to discover what yours is. It's really, I think if you look at it as a journey that we're all on, and that we're all willing to have an open mind and to learn, and that we're not afraid of the truth, because again, it's so much that's missing from the curriculum. We have to learn it. The other group that we're working with this year is specifically for my math department. This gentleman's name is LeBron James. It's not the basketball player, but his professional development is specifically teaching math teachers how to build that culturally relevancy, specifically in math. Okay. So going back to people in African history, not Pythagorean, but going back to the African history of who actually started that theorem and used it to build the pyramids. He didn't see himself as an African American male in math because every mathematician that he saw through college were mostly white males. So he makes it very intentional that you bring in these other images. Yeah. We've made lots of gains in reading. We've gone from looking at our MAP assessments from 2018 from about the 14th percentile in reading to this year the 81st percentile. Yeah. And we've made tremendous gains in math, but we still have to make more gains in math. I want to make sure that students are not, again, checking out of math because we don't see ourselves in math. We're not mathematicians. So I want to make sure that the teachers are getting that part of the culturally relevancy specifically for math. My hope and prayers for the future of education is that it becomes more about the children and less about politics. Okay. When you look at the things that we're talking about today, how the curriculum is designed and high-stake testing, a lot of that is political. It doesn't have the students' best interest in mind a lot of times. I don't know if that's a part of some of the systematic racism, but when we know that there's studies that exist that tells us that there's definitely racial biases that exist in tests like the SAT and some of the high stakes testing, you have to wonder, Why are we still using these tests to judge students, to judge schools? So I really hope that it becomes more of and a lot of times educators are not the ones making those decisions. So I hope that it becomes something that educators are really, truly seen as the experts. It's been rewarding to be able to come back to, a community that you were a part of, that you went through the same school system, graduated from, to let the students know, when they mention who their parents are, who their families are, that I have a connection because they may have been my classmates or either graduated with my sister. See several of the students, I see myself, or, my husband also is a product of Chester. So, I just want them to be able to be inspired like I was coming through school, like with people like Mr. Worthy. He was my yearbook staff teacher, economics, and Black history teacher as well. So I learned a lot from him, not just about school and the curriculum, but he was very good at building relationships with students and making sure that, we were being pushed in the right direction. Because I feel like as a leader, I want to do a good job for my community. I want parents to be able to feel like their children are in good hands. We have some great people that have come from Chester and have done amazing and great things, and you also can do the same thing. Before the pandemic, we were having town hall meetings where we would talk about, goals and things that they were doing well, things we needed to work on as a school. And I usually end the meetings with, CMS, I see you, what do you see? And I tell them your answer should always be greatness. I have to tell them at first, but later on it starts to catch on with them. So I just want to empower them. I want them to see the greatness in them that I see.
So if you're interested in what we talked about today and would like to learn more about the wonderful work that Ms. Sheka Houston is doing at Chester Middle School, Dr. Akua is doing, or anything we've talked about, comment below, or how's other ways that they can get involved or reach out to you?
You can reach out to me through email at shekahouston@yahoo.com. I'm on Facebook as well, so you can also contact me through Messenger, but I'm definitely willing to help anyone who wants to help students and see students achieve.
All right, well, thank you so much. It's been a joy. It's been enriching for me to talk with you, and just appreciate the wonderful things you're doing at Chester Middle School, in our community, and for the state and for our world.
And thank you for having me, and I appreciate the fact that you feel like definitely that this is a conversation that needed to be had, and that it needs to continue in order to bring about awareness and true change in some of the systems that exist.
Well, thanks so much for watching, and let us know if we can talk about anything in the future, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.